well, everybody out there in Facebook land is going to need to come see this in person.
Absolutely.
Okay, I wanted to talk about this altar piece that we have here that has the conservationist axe at the bottom. Let me see if I can turn around. It has so many pieces in it. I don't know how you want to start, because there's so many neat details in this picture or in this sculpture.
Yeah, this came about, I was asked to be in a show down at Stephen F. Austin, a Day of the Dead altar exhibition. And I was really kind of concerned because I don't have any Mexican heritage. I don't have any association to Day of the Dead. But the curator said, no, just you know, do something that fits for you. So at the time I was reading Aldo Leopold's A Sand County Almanac, and he was a forester turned a forest ecologist, and so a lot of these elements, the almanac, the way the book is set up, is every month he writes an essay about what's happening. So one is they're talking about tagging birds, and so those little reliquaries have feathers in them, and then I took liberties. The three troughs are corn, beans, and squash, which is they call it the Three Sisters. It was a Native American process of growing food and protecting that crop. So above it is a tool to plant the seed, which is basically, I carved a finger into a stick. So,
oh, right here.
Yeah, down at the bottom.
Can you see it? Let me see if I can get the camera. There it is.
Yeah. So
that's.
I'm kind of an avid gardener, although my garden is all full of weeds right now. But that's one of those things that connects me to the earth and my existence here. And so there's kind of autobiographical things in there, but there's also elements from Aldo Leopold, where he talks about conserving, and yet they're chopping all these trees down that he perceived to be invasive species that shouldn't have been there. But it's a fabulous book.
And what is that book again?
Aldo Leopold's Sand County Almanac.
Okay.
But that's where that piece came about. But there's a lot of liberties that are taken. It's not about the Sand County Almanac, although that was the driving force for it.
Right. Is that where you got the inspiration to record these leaves? There are 3 rows of leaves, and I noticed that you've dated them and put what the weather was and the temperature of that day, and here, let's
the
see
weather
if we can.
Conditions.
The weather conditions, very almanac-ish.
Yeah, and I think that was done before I had started reading. I was pressing leaves. Now we're back to the columns where I pressed those ferns, and actually my wife did a lot of that. But so I went out and I started noticing in the spring the leaves are tiny. And so I started picking them off and writing down what the date, the temperature, and what the weather was. And I pressed them. And then, they found their way. They seemed to fit perfectly.
It's I mean, then that one is no bigger than my fingernail. I mean, it's tiny. And this was all done in 2013. So this has been a while. And so super fun. This was in March, and the leaves go all, these are all through March.
Yeah, they were just every day. I went out and picked a leaf off the same branch from
Really?
a red oak in my backyard in Irving.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And what's this green, I guess this is more the paint. I noticed the same color paint is on the reliquary birdhouse, but you've stained this, and that's a nice contrast from the rough hewn part.
Yeah, it was really just a light stain to kind of bring it back to the flat plane of the earth.
Mm-hmm. And I love because he also has the fingers in each sprout of this shovel. And and you even have something, is that a picture? And that looks like
that's my hand holding a sprouted bean.
Look at that. I'm just now noticing that. I don't know if you can see it in my phone, but I'll try to take a better picture. But at first I thought it was just some kind of picture and I could see the sprout. That's cool. So then you sort of, I don't even know how you got that picture on there.
It's a decal material that called laser tran. Any image, any surface is what they say. So you print it out, and then I gold leafed the shovel and then laid that on top. So
very cool. Well, I love the fingers, and I love, that gives a whole new meaning to garden therapy. Digging in the dirt.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got the foot. Am I missing any symbolism here, or just?
No, it's just that kind of, a walk, a journey.
I love it. I love that piece. Okay, what about this one? You see it?
Yeah, that's one of the most recent. And yet, I talked about that I'm constantly doing things and having all of these parts and pieces. So the cherry column was a part of a piece that never really saw the light of the day in studio. It never worked. And so it sat in the corner, and all of a sudden it fit in here. So I cut it apart and put it in there. And so on the axe, one side is a lodgepole pine, and then on the back is a
sure enough,
a pine beetle, and they are they have a symbiotic relationship, and yet the beetle is killing a lot of these lodgepole pines, a number of different pines now. And then that whole idea of sprouting and new life. I grow a lot of garlic.
It looks like garlic now.
I was kind of looking at how that garlic is formed, and I thought, well, that's an interesting thing to form to carve, and so I carved that. And then down below, there's two wings in that pod form. And inside the wings, they're divided up from the veins in our hands. So the lines that go through are actually the blood veins and vessels, whatever. And then that's why one side is red and one side's blue.
Oh, that's cool. Very neat. Well, and I love our lighting guy. I don't know if you can see how the shadows cast everywhere.
Yeah.
But they almost go in a circle. We've got a little sundial working over here to coordinate with your seasonal. And this one's sort of a similar look to it.
Yeah, I really love this piece.
I do too. I love this whole thing happening here in the center.
Yeah,
almost.
I was thinking about how when you throw a rock and it ripples out the water,
I was
And
going to
so,
say that. It looks like water rippling out.
yeah, and so I cut out templates for different sized ovals and laid them down and started carving. And it's really interesting how that form changes as it moves around, because it continues onto the other side, if I'm not mistaken, the way it, yeah. Which is, to me, it's just kind of magical, the way patterns and lines crossing in three-dimensional space create completely new ways of seeing that same form.
That's lovely. Oh, and we've got, just for a bee with a wishbone. I'll never look at a wishbone the same way twice. Well, let's see. There's one more. This one's also very interesting right here. It looks almost like something Oriental or a Japanese shield, or I'm not sure.
Well, the horn form is another element that came over from my work with the archaeologist in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And then that disc form is very ancient, and I just started again with the pinecone scales, which is terribly obsessive compulsive. It just takes forever, but it's kind of like carving in the opposite, but it's that same kind of slow, methodical process. Instead of removing, it's adding.
Wow. Let's see. I've got a few more totems over here. This one's another pretty one. I love the colors. I love the again, it has the pine cone patterns. And what is this? Almost looks like a stalk out of a yucca or a cactus of some sort.
Well, interestingly, when you tear apart a pine cone,
Mm-hmm.
the inside has that pattern on it.
Well, you know I'm going to go find a pine cone after this, right? I think that'll be something we can bring our school children, or we have our summer art classes, and I bet they'd love to pull apart a pine cone and check it out. And I like how you put this one, the edge of it, or the end of one in there.
Right. And then years ago, I had a graduate student who brought me in this dead bug, and I had no idea what it was. And I went to the biology professor where I work, and she said, "Oh, it's an eastern toe biter."
Oh,
it is a monster bug. So
now, yeah, that's probably going to haunt me tonight. Like, great. Well, it's just a beautiful exhibit. Okay, now there's, I think, two more that we really haven't spoken about too much, or maybe three. But this one with the bean, and then there's a really cool carving at the bottom. I don't know if you want to say anything. And then there's this one that's next to it, about these two.
Yeah, the piece persistence that is over to your left.
Is that this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I, as I said, I carve all these parts and pieces. So I had carved that pod,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to figure out, well, how do I present these? And in the essay, Dr. Caesar asked about the verticality versus the horizontal. And the piece seemed so vertical, I needed some way to break that up. And that's where that box form started to come from, and containing that specimen. And then the carving, I was reading and thinking about how images of nature have persisted in our evolution. And so that carving was taken from a Louis Sullivan building in Chicago.
This carving on the base?
The Wainwright building. And so what I did is I printed it out and then removed parts that I didn't want. I just wanted that bending part. And so then I went in and carved that. So that's that kind of persistence of the influence of nature on us. But that was a lot of fun carving that piece.
It's beautiful. Beautiful piece. Now this is the smallest piece in the show. It's almost kind of another horn idea. Let's see. When I Was a Tree is this title. Which I love.
A lot of times, well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but periodically, you as working in the studio, you kind of need to refresh. You need to see where things can go. And so I just started cutting out forms and shapes, and I found both of these, and they worked well together. So one is reminiscent of a person, but it also is reminiscent of a tree. The other one is reminiscent of a person, but also is reminiscent of a tree. And so that's kind of where that came from. And then that little green and red one, that I think was the impetus for the one that's over by the ramp.
On the title wall? Oh no, this one. Yes.
Right. So there's that form again. So when you walk through the show, you'll see that there are these elements, both materially and formally, that keep rearing their head. They keep the helix, that shape, the pine cones, those things just keep coming up in the work.
Love that. And I love this little door that you have down here, and it's got a little fern. And these all slide. I don't know if I can demonstrate this for our viewers. They can, oh, look, and there's another one on this side.
Yeah, and when I was building the piece, you couldn't get away from those two looking like eyes. And so the only way that I could figure out how to not have it look like a pair of eyes was to put that door in, having it slide back and forth.
I love that. And I love that whole creative process. There is a way to fix it. Just keep finding. Wonderful. There's one more on the front, and it's a great piece too. Things in balance and this is a questionable hierarchy is the name of this one, which is a great name.
Yeah, so it has that kind of obelisk feel to it, and yet there's the hand. So inside, what do we find precious again? So that I need to have a human hand in there, and then that wing, and that containment of the space, and that box form came way before I was putting in the boxes recently. So again, those things keep rearing their heads. But a lot of my work has always had this sense of interior and exterior space.
It's wonderful. Well, I think that is a really great inside look at the work of Phillip Shore. And is there anything else you would like to say to our viewers?
No, I encourage everybody to come see the work. I really appreciate the opportunity for showing at the Longview Museum of Fine Arts. And thank you for taking the time to interview me.
You are welcome. It's been a pleasure. And just so everyone, Phillip and I have been talking about this show for about 2 years, and we're pretty excited. And we talked earlier, it's just very timely to be thinking about being interconnected and how everything is part of the cycle. So I do hope you'll come and enjoy this reflective space and ponder the work of Phillip.